Doing the live dance. And hello, everybody. I am HP Holo / Edie Skye. I write things and I also interview other people who write things. And today I am here with Melissa Olthoff to talk about her newest release. I get the title mixed up and I shouldn't. What's the title?
Shadows May Fall. Ta-da!
I keep wanting to call it Web of Shadows, which I think is actually another book in the series. So, Shadows May Fall. I have read a lot of it and I love it to death, and today we are going to talk about it. Before we start chatting, though, I have my usual things to go over. So, first off, we are giving away a signed copy of Shadows May Fall. So if it's the link is going to be in the show notes, but I am also putting it in the comments. So if you want to try to win a signed copy, go fill out that little form. If you want to just read it right now, I'm also putting that link in the comments. Oh, Marisa's here. Hey, Marisa. By the way, y'all should go read Marisa too, especially since she wrote the first book in this series.
And it's amazing.
And here's just Melissa's website if you want to go buy everything. And also, if you would like to support this podcast and or buy my cat treats, I've got a Ko-Fi and a Buy Me a Coffee. So go do that, please. All right. So, Melissa, you are one of my favorite authors by this point because I love everything by you that I've ever read. Hunters and Hijinks is amazing, by the way, which you guys, if you want to read about space hyenas going on a treasure hunt across the solar system, or is it galaxy? It's space.
It's space.
Anyway, space adventure treasure hunt. It's super good. But today we're here to talk about Shadows May Fall. So, Melissa, first, tell us about you and tell us a short description of the book. We will get into the meat of it later.
Okay, so I write sci-fi, I write fantasy, I sneak in or just push romance right in your face because I write what I love to read. And quite frankly, I love some angsty romance in my stuff with my snarky banter. I've been writing with mostly Chris Kennedy Publishing for a couple of years now. I kind of had a this is why we don't do time math moments when I realized my first novel only came out in February of 22. And
Did it really?
It did.
I could swear you've been writing longer than that.
I've had some short stories before that, but that was my first novel. I'm like, I wrote this is my 9th published novel in less than 3 years. So I've been like just having a blast.
Amazing.
It's so much fun. Military veteran. I was in the Air Force, which is kind of how I got started on this crazy journey. Mostly because my mentor, oldest friend, Casey Moores, he was like, hey, you should try writing after you read my story and tell me what you think about it. And here I am. So outside of that, I'm an accountant by day, which is kind of cliche, but totally legit. I don't do like real accounting things. I do problem solving, which is super fun. And I have 2 very, very energetic children that mostly drive me insane, but I love them.
It astonishes me how many authors I know are actually in accounting or a similar field. It's like there's a lot of the authors who are very data oriented usually have some kind of accounting background, and it's really interesting to me.
It is super weird. I'm like, oh my god, there's so many of us that are. I swear, I'm not lying. I'm actually an accountant. Oh my gosh. So, Shadows May Fall is, to put it very briefly, it is a twisty, turny, angsty, like epic urban fantasy story where you have a character who kind of is in the position where she has to stop an ancient evil that her family has dedicated like their lives to stopping. Only she's the only one left. And she's partnered with somebody that she cannot stand and hates because, this minor little detail of he legally murdered her father. So, but he's really hot, which helps, especially with fantasy romance, and I'm allowed to do this. So we've got some fun little side characters and some interesting little side quests, but basically stop the soul-eating monster before it destroys the world.
Nice. All right. Now, this is book 2 in the Hit World Valkyries series. So, first question, one, just give us a general overview of the series itself. And 2, do you have to have read the first book to understand this one?
Okay, so Hit World and Hit World Valkyries are so much fun to play in. So Hit World was created by William Allen Webb, Bill Webb, and Larry Hoy. And then Marisa Wolf is the series runner for the Valkyries side of the house. And it is anything goes urban fantasy with the backdrop of legal assassinations. Like, they have set up this world where if you have the money and you have a contract, you can legally kill somebody, which makes for a really interesting setting, right? Where you have characters that may be on the side of good or bad or in between, doing all sorts of shady or not shady things, but it's not illegal to kill somebody.
It's a good series for people who like morally gray characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a hard thing for me to reconcile at first, though, when they asked me to write it. I'm like, wait, I have to deal, but I don't want to kill people. This sounds wrong. But no. So I came up with the idea of, well, if that is a norm in this world, then are you going to blame the shooter, the person that carried out the assassination, or are you going to blame the person that took out the contract?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I managed the enemies to lovers aspect with my main characters, Athena and Sebastian. Sebastian is my shooter, but he was just the weapon used. So I had Athena go after the guy that took out the contract in the short story, which is in the Valkyries Initiative anthology that Melissa Olthoff put out. You do not have to read book 1 to read book 2. They kind of act as standalones. However, obviously you should read anything Melissa Olthoff writes. But it does set up that Nick Fury character, Bryn, who kind of like, she will appear in everybody else's books as like the boss, the tie-in character, the one who knows all the things. So absolutely read Valkyries Chosen. It's amazing, and pick up the anthology while you're at it, because you'll get all the background short stories for our characters.
And I should also plug my own little video. I did an interview with Marisa a few weeks ago. And so if you would like to hear about Valkyrie's Choice, go find that on whatever channel you're watching this on. It was a fun interview.
It really was.
All right. Now, I have to tell you, I had a hilarious experience with this story when I first started. So I was guest of honor at PCon this past weekend, and I was on my way to Fort Worth at the airport, waiting in the TSA line, and I open up this book and I see Fort Worth is where Athena is going to investigate. And I'm like, oh, I'm heading there. I wonder if I'm going to see where she's going. And then I finish the page and it's like, no, I do not want to go to there. We're going to stay as far away as possible. So I have to ask, why did you decide to set your opening action scene inside a shit factory in Fort Worth? Like, I need to know, why a poo processing plant?
Because it's funny.
Perfect justification. I just spit. Sorry.
So one, I wrote this story. This is actually like my third novel that I ever wrote. So I wrote this like 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
But at the time, I'm like, okay, I have this character who is like super depressed. Like, her whole life has been like turned on its head. Her father's been killed. Her brother is like in a medically induced coma. She is on her own. Could have gone to jail for the small, minor, little murder that she committed, and instead gets roped into this Valkyries Initiative thing. So she has no idea what's going on. She is essentially alone for weeks, and her only interaction is with Bryn, who is a little, sarcastic and standoffish for very good reasons. And I'm like, what is the worst thing I could do to Athena to open up this story? I know. A sewage processing plant.
That's the worst thing you could do to most characters. It was hilarious, by the way. So, like, mission accomplished. But oh my gosh, yeah, that was the only good experience I had in the TSA line.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, there's a whole epic story that I can get to about how I nearly missed my plane because I got in trouble for my fountain pens at TSA. And yeah, the short version of it is I basically sprinted to my plane movie style and made it by 30 seconds. Like, it was a whole thing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And
then I had a really fun weekend and it kind of made up for it. But yes. Yeah, so that is the association I have with this novel now.
God. What's really funny though about that scene is, I had this idea of like, these little saboteur like poop demons, right? Like, let's just make this worse. Let's make it worse. But I was sprinting at the time. So sometimes, authors will get on Discord and we'll do sprints, like 10, 20 minutes, write as much as you can, just turn your brain off and go. I had no plan whatsoever to create magical talking rats or give Athena a sidekick magical talking rat character.
Oh, I've got questions about the rats too.
100% not planned, but I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a thing now. Cool. I'm going with it.
Oh man, I love everything about this scene. Well, the thing I love too is like we laugh at the concept of poop demons that smother their victims, but like that's not a way I want to go. It's like there's something very viscerally horrifying about the simple idea of dying surrounded by poop demon. Like I didn't know that was a fear that I had, but now it is a fear that I have.
You're welcome.
But it's hilarious, but it's also very effective in setting up the stakes of this world and the kind of threats they're facing. So, good job. But okay, so the pizza rats. I know, like you just said that they occurred randomly, but I need to know about all the pizza rats because Mikey is one of my favorite characters. And it's like I relate to Mikey because I often feel very rat-like in my comfort sometimes, and also pizza. Like I fully understand them accepting pizza as currency. So
at the time, like, a lot of us, like we talked about this offline, like we tend to be influenced by what we're watching or reading at the time. And I had decided that my kids needed to watch the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies.
Yes.
Because, I mean, epic. We've been going through like all the 80s and 90s movies that I loved as a kid. And so we're watching these as I'm writing these opening scenes, which totally influence. I'm like, of course they're obsessed with pizza. Of course their names are Mikey, Raph. We haven't met Leo yet. That's a book 2 thing.
Yes.
But
yeah, there was a point where I was reading that action scene and was like, these names sound familiar.
Just love it. I almost named Mikey was actually originally April until I was like, that's too there's too many A names at this point. So
yeah.
I'm like, all right, fine, I'll change her to Mikey, which is adorable anyways. So
oh yeah, I love Mikey. I wasn't expecting her to become one of the main characters, and I'm really glad she did. Oh, we've got comments here. This Marissa says, typing, yay, Mikey, boo, poop demons. You understand, Marissa.
She knew what I was doing. In fact, it was partly her idea.
Yes, Marissa, that was an excellent idea. Thank you for that. And then Jeremy's in the comments and says, howdy.
Hey, Jeremy.
Your name's here. All right. So let's see here. I had other questions. All right. Athena has special powers, and she is a type of magical person / creature that I was honestly not familiar with before this particular book. So tell me, is it Kidemonas? Is that how you pronounce it? All right.
That's at least how I pronounce it. Whether I'm saying it right. You know what? We're going to go with that. So I had this idea for a short story like a couple years ago, and it was mostly based on this weird ass dream I had where it was like angel wings and demon bones. And I'm like, ooh, I want to play with this idea. Right. And that's actually ended up being the title of my short story in the Valkyries Initiative, Antho. So I'm like, what if you had a race of so have you gotten to the Grigori yet?
I don't think so.
So I will try and keep it like minor spoilery, but like, what if you have like a race of extra dimensional beings that come here for reasons and they have to leave for reasons, but they don't want to leave us defenseless for reasons. So they gift a family that was very helpful to them with powers that can help them fight.
Ooh, okay.
But if you have 2 different beings gifting those powers, then maybe those powers don't play nice. So you end up having dual talents, but they tend to not play well together within each individual Kidemonas. So you have the ability to call certain aspects of your talent, but you can't call them together. Not until you've walked the balance. And in Hit World, walking the balance is how characters can do a sort of vision quest that is usually horrific and awful, and you can never forget the things that you see or experience. But if you survive it, then you can access a higher level of your talents. In the case of the Kidemonas, it gives them access to their angel fire, which is, what you see on the cover with Athena's, the blue flames. So it's it was really fun playing with that concept. And my favorite part was that it is emotion-based magic.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot do certain things unless you can manipulate your emotions to call on that particular town. I'm like, ooh, so now I have like emotional manipulators, only it's all self-directed.
Mm-hmm.
So Athena is very, very good at compartmentalizing and ignoring her grief and ignoring the things that she doesn't want to feel until she can't.
Mm-hmm. While we're talking about the magic, let's talk about the magic system in general. Because one thing that I really enjoyed about the opening scene is like I'm already somewhat familiar with Hitworld. I've read a few of the novels, and so I was already loosely familiar with the magic system. But I really enjoyed how efficiently you set up how everything worked in that opening scene. So we know that that people who use magic in this world draw on Caval. Is that how it's pronounced? And so what are the mechanics of that? Because that's always the cool part of urban fantasy for me. I like knowing all the ins and outs of the magic.
So I am not going to lie. This magic system is my favorite. Like I would tell Bill all the time, like, this is the coolest thing ever. So you have Caval, which is just what we call magic, right? But unlike a lot of other books or systems, it's not a constant thing. It is a finite resource. And sometimes I always think of it like an ocean, right? Or like water. Sometimes there's plenty. Sometimes there's just a trickle. And sometimes your opponent can grab it all before you can. So if they can hold all of it, you can be, or at least you can make sure that your character is screwed over when you want them to be screwed over. So it is an excellent tool to make sure that your characters don't necessarily get overpowered or have an easy time of it. They need to get their butts kicked too, right? So you have finite amounts of Caval. Sometimes it really is a matter of who can grab it first. And that was super fun to play with, where Athena gets, she gets cocky sometimes. She's like, I have this impenetrable armor. Nothing can touch me. Oh, crap. There isn't enough magic to all my armor. I'm screwed.
That's one of the things that I like most about her character is that she is very competent at what she does. But she does have that occasional overconfidence that then knocks her back a little bit. And I really like that balance. All right, so now we need to talk about the romance and Sebastian. So tell us about Sebastian.
Okay, so by the way, guys, Sebastian 100% looks like Dee Winchester and sounds like Richard Armitage when he voiced Trevor Belmont from Netflix's Castlevania.
Oh yes, I love him more now, automatically.
Because I was literally, again, I was watching those shows at the time. So I hear Trevor Belmont in my head when Sebastian is talking, and I was watching Supernatural, and I'm like, all my characters now look like Dee Winchester. Done.
Richard Armitage as Belmont was a gift to humanity. That was like, I'm not even a big Castlevania fan, but that particular performance made a fan out of me, at least for that particular show. And I was really miffed that the second show didn't follow him more.
I
didn't follow him at all because they switched casts.
I didn't even want to watch the second show because I'm like, but no Richard Armitage. No, done.
That's the primary reason I was watching the first one. I mean, that and the action and whatnot. I mean, there are lots of good things about it, but Trevor carried a lot of it.
He was so funny too. Like the humor was great.
Oh yeah.
So, Sebastian is very grumpy, right? It was important to me to set up enemies to lovers to me the right way, where it wasn't a miscommunication. It wasn't a one-sided thing. Athena literally hates this man and at the same time is grateful to him because he murdered her father and saved her brother. And then how dare he save her life when they're going after the bad guy in the short story, right? So she's very conflicted because while he is very much an asshole and grumpy and all these things, like it is very obvious through his actions that he is also a good person. And she cannot reconcile that at first because shooters are all bad, right?
Yeah.
Or are they?
I love how you've characterized him because it's so subtle and so efficient. I want to say I'm about 25% into the book at this point, and she has just now realized that she hates him, but she might actually have a thing for him. And there's also elements where it's like he has legitimate reasons for disliking her. And where they're legitimate even to you as the reader who is supposed to be rooting for her. And that is a really, really interesting interplay right there, because it's like I'm sympathetic to both of them. And I really like having that feeling. as a reader.
Yeah. I tend to devour romance novels, like usually not contemporary. I usually like the paranormal or the urban fantasy romance or the romantasy. And I've been, both of us, I think, have been like reading them for research purposes too, to like what
Mhm.
tropes work, what don't, what do we like, what drives us freaking insane. And I always hated it when it was one-sided. Like Sebastian has legit reasons for like just hating her, and at the same time just being so frustrated, but he likes her. And
Mhm.
he's pissed off that he likes her because from his point of view, everything in his life went wrong the second he took that contract out. And the
Yep.
second he did what he thought was the right thing. Because
And
from
that's what makes it so painful too. It's so conflicted. I love it. I do have to say that this, like, I love action and I love romance. This book in particular has been a breath of fresh air because all the romances I've attempted recently, like, they've all been audiobooks that are narrated by these people with really vulnerable, traumatized sounding voices, and they're supposed to be badasses or eventually become badasses. And I was so tired of it so fast. But this is Athena definitely has her vulnerabilities, but she's very kick-ass in a believable way, and I really really like that about her character. And another thing that I like about her too is that in some urban fantasy romances that I've read, the main female character will be really kick-ass, but her brain will absolutely melt out of her ears whenever she encounters the person that the plot says she's supposed to fall in love with. Like, she just suddenly becomes stupid.
Right.
And I really like that Athena, like, she definitely has some reactions to Sebastian. I mean, who wouldn't? But they're reasonable reactions that are still believable for her. And I really, really like that because I was never annoyed by Athena, or at least annoyed when I wasn't supposed to be. And that was nice too. So congrats.
Thank you. Really proud of that.
All right, so let's see, what question do I have next? Let's see here. I wrote everything and now I can't actually like read my own writing, which all right. So now you mentioned that you had written 9 books in 3 years?
Yeah, about that.
Like, how do you write so fast? I need to know this technique.
Some of those, like all of the Hyena books, were co-written with Nick Steverson, who is freaking amazing. We're gonna go back and do book 4 probably at the beginning of next year because our schedules got way busier than we anticipated at the end of this year. And by the way, how is it already September? Holy
Oh, I
crap!
know. Oh my gosh.
No time math. So like I said, I co-wrote the 3 Hyenas books with Nick. I co-wrote Forlorn Hope with Casey Moore's and Bill Foss's Blood and Armor series. And right now I'm co-writing with Jason Cordova with Secret Projects, which is super fun. I love.
Speaking of whom, he's in the comments. Hey, Jason.
Hey!
Poop demon rats. Ugh, I feel that.
I love co-writing. It's so much fun because you can, even like on the days where you don't quite have like the motivation, bouncing off your co-author is usually enough to like get me out of a funk.
Oh yeah, same here.
And honestly, like, I live in Memphis. There is nothing to do here, guys. So writing is like my hobby. So I have my day job, I have my kids, I have my husband, and 2 very big fluffy German shepherds, and then I write. I don't have a lot of other outlets, so I have time, especially because my husband, goes on a lot of trips for his day job. So I have a lot of nights where kids are in bed, dogs are flopped on the floor, and I'm like, well, I could watch TV or I could write. So I just try and set a goal, like 1,000 words a day, 2,000 words a day, whatever my brain feels like it can handle at the time. Right now, it's about 1,000 because I think I'm still burned out from Dragon Con.
Yeah, Dragon Con will have that effect.
Oh man,
I didn't even go to Dragon Con and I'm tired from it. Like, I tend not to go to Dragon Con just because crowds. But I lurk on Facebook in the Dragon Con group, and there's so much going on and so much fun stuff that I experience vicariously. It's like by the time the weekend's over, I haven't even moved from my couch and I'm done.
You're getting secondhand exhaustion.
Yes, secondhand exhaustion. I think I was more exhausted from watching Dragon Con stuff online than I was actually like doing stuff at PCon as the guest of honor, and they had me going nonstop. It was fun though, but I fell over. Like, I got off the plane when I got back home. It was just like, we done. All right. So what was the most challenging part of writing this novel? Because it's already in someone else's series. It's book 2 in a series. You've got a lot of stuff that's already been established. And how'd it go?
So most of this, like honestly, I wrote this story like in 2 months. Like it went super fast because I've written urban fantasy, sci-fi, space opera, military sci-fi, all sorts of things. But urban fantasy is my love. I love it so much because like I grew up reading sci-fi and fantasy, but when I discovered urban fantasy, when I discovered Jim Butcher and Alona Andrews and Patricia Briggs and all these awesome authors, I'm like, oh my God, I found my home. This is
What would you
amazing.
say are the read alikes for this particular novel? Like, if you liked this author, you will
Ooh,
like. I
oh
keep
man.
wanting to say Web of Shadows. Shadows may fall.
I
got
would
the
not
shadow
I
part
would
right.
not compare myself to Patricia Briggs or Alona Andrews by any means because I am still very much a baby author. But if you like that kind of like action-packed urban fantasy where there is a good romantic subplot, then the Kate Daniels series, the Alpha and Omega, the Mercy Thompson series are good comparisons. At least those are my loves. So that's what I was trying to emulate. And most of the book flowed really, really well. I was really, really happy with how that walking the balance scenes went. It just look, there it is on the page. Did I write this? Cool. I'm sure I wrote it. It was great. The final battle took me forever. It was one of those like, okay, I have it. I know what it needs to look like. I wrote it and I went, okay, cool. Now I need to like punch it up here, punch it up there, tweak that, do that, and then read it and go, all right, it almost flows. I'm like 90% there. And I was 90% there for months. Like I would just go back, like it was finished. It was just me like picking at that scene, going like, it's not quite right because I can feel it. I'm very much a plotter, pantser, chaotic note taker, but I can feel the story and I can feel when it clicks in and when it's right. And honestly, like with Salvage Bunny over in the Salvage Title universe, I had the same issue with Fallout on Darsana. I think I rewrote that final battle scene 17 times. Not even joking. I think I was actually counting 17 times before it flowed the way I wanted it to. So it's not so much of a perfection thing. It has to have that flow, that feel to it that I want.
It has to vibe just right.
Yeah.
Battle scenes.
You got to get them right.
Yeah, like I love writing action scenes, but they are some of the hardest things to write because trying to convey I always want to try to convey the sense of watching an action movie, but on the page. And so I asked myself, how do I do that but words? And
but words.
When your reader is looking at a static page, it's a great challenge to try to try to capture that sort of thing. Do you have any particular tips or tricks that you lean on whenever you're structuring your battle scenes? Like any go-to pieces of advice?
So one of my like baseline things that I do when I'm writing in general is I build a playlist. Like I have an individual playlist for each thing, right? Like I love my music. And if once I figure out what the song is that goes with that final battle scene, I will listen to it on freaking repeat and I will have no distractions, like none. And this is like very like just like a soft technique, right? Where I will listen to the song and I will think about the scene and I will visualize the crap out of it. It is a movie in my head and it
I do the exact same thing.
Right? It is so much fun. I'm like, all right, how do I get that out of here and onto a page where like a reader could actually at least glimpse what the heck craziness is going on in my brain? So music is definitely one thing that I use. Working with Bill Fawcett, the 5 senses technique is something he really hammered home. He's like, when you are reading through like, what you have on the page, make sure that you're including like, sense of smell, touch, taste, if it's appropriate, especially if you've got like some, smoky or bloody stuff going on. Like you're going to taste that copper, like just things that make it feel more real and more tangible can help ground that scene and make it feel more real to the reader. The other thing is making sure that you keep track of all your characters.
Yes.
Technique.
Oh, I struggle with that one sometimes so much.
Like one of the main problems I quickly identified with my final battle scene is I'm like, okay, cool. Like I had this like paragraph where like, okay, and then the bad guy died. Wee like, all right, obviously I need to go back and fix this. And I did. Then I'm like, something is still missing. Oh yeah, Sebastian. I totally like just cut him out at one point. I'm like, what is he doing? Well, she's doing all this epic magic stuff. What the heck balls is Sebastian doing? I'm like, oh, I know what he's doing. And then threading that through. So keeping track of your characters, kind of helps.
A good idea.
So
So you mentioned having a playlist. What was the final battle theme on your playlist?
So this is a great story. It is Heroes Never Die. I'll have to look up the artist. But one of like the chorus is fires may rise, shadows may fall.
Ooh.
And for the longest time, y'all, I had the manuscript, its title was Fuck If I Know. I could not think of a name, and I sent it like that to Marisa, and I'm like, here's my story, hope you like it. No idea what we're calling it yet. And she's like, girl, so I was listening to this awesome playlist you got, and I'm pretty sure you have your title right here, dummy. I'm like,
it's such a good title too, even if I keep mixing it up.
Marisa is awesome. I'm like, oh my God, if I use Shadows May Fall, then I have the titles for book 2 and 3, like they just fell into place, and I was very, very happy. Marisa,
well, it also suits the visual theme of the novel very well, because you have the one bad guy who has what the shadowy birds, which is horrifying to me,
right?
But it's a really cool bad guy, but not something I ever want to encounter in real life.
No, and holy crap! Like, so with Hit World, Bill Webb was very much a fan of drawing from like actual no kidding mythology, and Celtic and Irish mythology. Whoo, there is some crazy,
there's some terrifying stuff in there.
So that is where the Slua is, and I have no idea if I'm pronouncing this stuff right, but this is how I pronounce it. It's the Slua, and it is this terrifying thing that feeds off of negative emotions and slips through the cracks of your psyche and lodges itself in your heart, where it feasts away at your soul until there is nothing left. And I'm like, okay, that I need to use, because that is terrifying. But the my little pizza obsessed Ninja Turtle loving rats are the Fear Darg, which are another Celtic myth where sometimes they look like cool little wrinkled old men, sometimes they look like rats. I'm like, well, they're rats.
It was a great decision too. I love them.
Thank you.
Were there any other creatures or figures or monsters from Celtic mythology that you pondered inserting but didn't?
There were, I looked at like, the more common ones that people have heard of, like banshees and, the fae are always super fun. I included a sprite, which is not like, the little Tinkerbell thing, in at least in my mind, like it is a species of fae that can look very much like a human who is working at a diner, and you don't want to be in their debt. So if they say the first meal is on us, pay for your meal anyways.
Oh, we've got more people in the comments. Reese says, hey, y'all. And then, Marisa said of your book, and it finished so good. So further endorsement, y'all. Go read it. And again, while we're at a little stopping point, I do want to say I'm going to go put my little links in the comments again. If you are having fun and want to win a signed copy of this book, the link is now in the comments again. Go sign up for that. If you want to just read it straight out, I am also putting that link back in the comments. And if you guys have any questions for Melissa, feel free to put them in the comments too. We will get to them. Ask the craziest things. Ask about the pizza rats. Ask about all the things. So, all right, let's see here. Now you mentioned you collaborate with people. You have a kind of all over the place kind of writing technique. Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Are you somewhere in between? Like, how much do you like? How?
How? Yes. So I am very much in between. I don't pants. I like Nick Steverson, like at his heart, that man is a pantser and he's brilliant at it. My brain don't work that way. So I tend to do a lot of chaotic notes, which is like I identify as a chaotic note taker. So halfway between a pantser and a plotter. I will use Kevin Eikenberry's 7-point story structure to kind of set things up when I'm outlining. But at first, all I am doing is just I open a Word document and I just start like putting in dashed little notes or scenes or like the characters will start talking in my head, and that's how I know I'm getting close to being able to write. So
Mhm.
I'll have little notes of like dialogues or just messy word vomit scenes, and then I'll take all of that chaos and I'll organize it into like some semblance of an outline to make sure, okay, it rises and falls where I want it to. It feels right. And then when I'm actually writing, I allow room for surprises like pizza rats. I want to have that space to do things. And like, for example, Nick and I would like we text constantly. He's my best friend. And we would, no kidding, change what we were gonna do in Hyenas just to be able to include like little snippets of dialogue, because we will talk like we're Maddie and Reggie
Mhm.
without the romance, because gross, that man is my brother. Ew. But we'll have little dialogue things. We're like, oh, we've got to do this. This is hilarious.
I'm
So
often the same way. Like I will
yeah.
find that some days when I sit down to write, it's a real struggle to get any writing done until I hit that one magical piece of dialogue, and then just the entire scene flows from it, and I get like a million words done in an hour. Not literally
Isn't
that
it awesome
completely.
though?
Oh yeah, it's a great
Oh,
feeling, and I'm one of those too where I have characters that write themselves. So once the characters start talking, like I have no choice. I gotta write it down,
oh,
and
my husband is so patient with me. Like, now that he's finally understood that I'm clinically insane, because he did not understand it. I'm like, no, honey, you don't. I hear them. They're in my head. Like, I
yep,
can hear Athena talking, or I can hear, Kaylee talking, or Maddie. I'm like, I have to write this down before I lose it. And
yep.
I won't, like, if we're hanging out at night, I won't like write, but I'll be like, stand by. There was a griffin in my head, and I must write this down before I lose it. And he just looks at me now and goes, okay.
It's so nice to have someone who understands that, though. It's one of the biggest benefits of being married to someone who writes and co-writing with my husband. But
That's
yeah,
amazing.
do you find that your characters live in your head and like pop out at certain moments? Like when I go grocery shopping, I have a particular crew. They're not even from the same universe, but they like to come hang out in my brain when I'm grocery shopping and convince me to buy stuff I don't need. Like it's absurd. Like genuinely, if we were not writers, we would genuinely sound insane with the kind of conversation we're having.
We
But
do,
it's
like, that is amazing.
they're as well they come out as well realized as actual people, which is
Mhm.
it's absurd, but it's one of the greatest things about being a writer, like
It
being
is
capable of that kind of creation.
it is
And
like that depth of imagination is
oh yeah.
amazing, but it can also really suck though when a character has become so real in your head, and then you go, I have to kill you now.
Yep.
And I have there it's not just that I have legitimately cried at killing a character. It's that every time I read that scene, I will still cry, because I am reminded that this person that
Mhm.
I loved and spent time with is gone, and my brain cannot differentiate between fiction and reality at that
Mhm.
level, which tells me it's, well, one, I'm insane, but two, like, I managed to do a good job like creating depth to that character, at least in my head. That's right. We're
Marisa says, "What's a little insanity between friends?" No, speaking of depth of character, one thing that I have really enjoyed about the novel thus far, I'm about 25% in, and the romance is already sexy. Like I haven't spent a lot of time with Athena and Sebastian, but already I feel the chemistry. And so I want to know, what techniques do you use to write that kind of romance so efficiently? Like how do you choose what details to include? Because romance is tough.
It
Like I think
is.
it's one of the most fun genres, but it's also one of the most difficult things to write convincingly. And you do write it convincingly.
Thank you. Um, Honestly, like, some of it is literally just putting yourself in that scene, right? And being so well into your characters' heads that you can figure out, like, okay, at this point, because I really prefer slow burn, right? So
Mhm,
for romance tropes, like fast burn is like insta love, right? Like
mhm.
fated mates, or like, I don't know, really bad decisions on alcohol. Slow burn is like where you take the time to develop that relationship, and it's, idiots to lovers, friends to lovers, second chance, like, or in this case, enemies to lovers, which is my favorite. But it's honestly, a lot of it I think I just absorbed through osmosis, like just reading so much of the genre and picking out what I liked and what I didn't like. And so much of what I liked, I figured out, was that angst and that tension and letting that slowly develop, but not letting it take over the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that was me keeping myself on a tight leash because I'm like, I want these two to get together. They're going to get together. I want this to happen, but I must be patient. So I may have jumped ahead like 2 whole books and written out some fun scenes just to kind of get it out of my system. And whether that works for everybody, I don't know. My brain is weird, but
I absolutely do the same thing. Like I conceptualized a romance series and like wrote all the spicy scenes first, just so I could make sure I could make it work.
yes.
And now I just write all the stuff that builds up to it.
Like,
the spicy scenes are like 3 books away, but it's nice to have them.
Well, it's nice to build up, like, yes, you have like the fun banter and like, the slow rolling.
I love the banter.
Tension, like, damn, he's hot. Crap. But the emotional aspect to me is the most fun, like building that slowly, like, building the trust between the 2 characters and the slow realization that, okay, he's an asshole, but he's a good man. And holy crap, he just saved my life. I have lost how many times he has saved my life, or how many times I have saved his life, if we're talking epic stakes like urban fantasy. And it's just fun to build off of that, slowly building trust and connection with another character. So I enjoy it.
What's your favorite enemies to lovers story, whether movie or novel, or I won't make you pick one. You can pick one.
Man. This is like being at the doctor's office when they ask you like, okay, do you have any questions? And you're like, nope, nothing has gone wrong with me ever. I am perfectly healthy. Great.
I'm beginning to find that, like, as I delve further into romance, I'm beginning to find that that's one of my favorite genre, or one of my favorite tropes too, which it's absolutely funny because it's one of those ones that would not work in real life. Like if I meet someone in real life and they annoy me, I don't hang out with them. I'm not going to fall in love with them. But when it happens in a romance novel, when that's the point of the romance novel and it's written well, it's like, oh yes, give me more, please. Give me more of this annoying man.
So I think a really good example, it's not necessarily my favorite, but it's all my brain is spitting out at this moment, is you have Sarah J. Maas's ACOTAR, Court of Roses and Thorns, where we're introduced to Rhys, who I really wanted to pronounce as wrists the whole time because my brain is dumb, but that's okay. It's fine. Like, and she laid out things so well for that enemies to lovers aspect for those 2, that reading, like getting past book 1 was a bit of a challenge, but once I hit book 2, I'm like, oh, this is why everyone loves this.
I am going to read book 2 on your recommendation, because book one was my first foray into romantasy, and I was not convinced to like romantasy because of it. But I also didn't realize you weren't supposed to like Tamlin.
No,
I thought he was supposed to
know that either.
And now that I know that, it changes things. I read it not knowing the tropes of the genre, and now that I know the tropes of the genre makes a lot more sense to me. But oh my gosh, that first read was a struggle.
Yeah. So, like with enemies to lovers, like, right, one, it needs to be legit grievance on both sides, but there also needs to be redeeming qualities for both characters. It can't be like, well, he is a scumbag shooter assassin and he's an awful person, but he's hot. That doesn't work. It can't be purely physical attraction, because if you legit hate this person, it doesn't matter if they look like freaking Dean Winchester, you're going to hate them. So they have to have redeeming qualities on both sides. You have to build those characters in the right way. And it's important, in my mind at least, to show glimmers of that from the opposing POV. Or, like in my case, like I strictly wrote from Athena's POV, but it was important to show, not just tell, like through actions that the characters do, that like, okay, maybe what she's seen and what she thinks is not the whole picture. Like legit grievances, but hope. You got to have the hope.
Yes. And I like how slowly things unravel is not the right word. How slowly things develop between the 2 of them, because it's like they'll be having an argument or an intense situation, and then suddenly you drop this one little nugget of surprise tenderness or surprise observation, especially on Sebastian's part, and it's like, oh, there's more going on here. So yeah, it was great entertainment for all of my plane and TSA adventures this past week. I want to know what else is on your playlist. So we know the climactic song.
Oh my
What
gosh.
else do you like to write to?
So for Shadows May Fall and Hit World in general, I had a lot of girly stuff. Like I listened to a lot of rock and a lot of like not really pop usually, but by the way, I discovered that nobody really likes adjudicating edits, right? Like we don't like going through edits. But if I'm listening to Taylor Swift while I'm editing, I am bopping along too much to really get super ragey about edits. So new technique, thought I'd share. I had some Katy Perry Rise on this one. I had Sia Unstoppable, which I put my armor on. I'm like, of course this has to go on Athena's playlist. So when I'm building these playlists, I'll get on YouTube. I love YouTube because their mix tends to pull up songs that I might actually like. So I'll start with that one or two songs that I know, and then I'll just listen and pick out like little things that remind me of what I'm working on, whether it's the armor or at one point, I think I had Angel with a Shotgun because there is a scene you haven't read yet. And I'm like, this is perfect for Sebastian. And I did something really bad to Athena that, don't worry, she was fine. But she went through some shit, y'all. And I needed like a poppy, bouncy like song that one characterized, Sebastian in that moment, but two was a little bit lighthearted because it was a little dark for a minute there. And I'm like, I need this. I need the bouncy.
Oh, we've got a good recommendation in the comments. I haven't actually read this, but Reese says that Jill Barrup's fourth wall eliminating novel, Just Stab Me Now, is an excellent hot enemy to lover work.
That has been on my list for like a year. Thank you for reminding me of that.
I'm adding that to my list too. That's such an excellent title for an enemy to lover work too. Yes. Did you have a particular favorite scene that you really enjoyed writing? Oh, I need to know now.
There's so many. There was a moment where Sebastian was shirtless and Athena was like, down girl, like, nope. At least if I die, I will go out with a great view.
Oh, the shirtless scenes are always the good ones.
Those are so much fun, right? But without giving away spoilers, I think one of my favorite moments to write was like, I drop hints of what Sebastian's talent is throughout. And I mean, it's kind of obvious what he is, but when he finally like unleashes his talent and she's like, oh, of course he is. Yep. Great. Perfect. That was so much fun to write. I'm like, yes.
I'm looking forward to this scene now. I mean, I'm looking forward to the rest of the book in general, but all right. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. So first off, I want to say thank you for joining me. But before we close out, I want to say, I want you to say, what you got coming up? Any signings? Any conventions? This book just released. Do you have any others in the works or for release soon? Considering that you've written 9 in the course of 3 years.
This is my fourth novel out this year, so that's
Lord.
it.
What else have you written this year? We got 10 minutes. We can talk about these other books.
Salvage Bunny. So Salvage Bunny is my Salvage Title Universe character, Kaylee. She's kind of like my mashup between Dr. Daniel Jackson from Stargate and Evie from The Mummy. So I love her character so much. I'm actually getting ready to dive back into her head to do the 4th book in her trilogy. Oops. So Fallout on Darsana was her 3rd book, and that came out in February or March. And that one was fun. That one was very much along the theme of how far would you go to save yourself? So those are fun books to write. And then my 4HU, my 4 Horsemen novel, Companions in Chains, came out. That one definitely came out. That's right. It was the month of Melissa because Chris Kennedy is awesome. Yes. He declared March the month of Melissa because I had back-to-back releases. That was a blast. But Companions in Chains is very much a Science Guild mind fuckery, power of friendship, and a dropship pilot who is very, very determined to get her friend back from the Science Guild that may or may not have stolen her. That whole thing mostly came about because I was listening to a group, a band called Dos Gringos. If you've ever wanted to know what fighter pilots are really like, highly recommend checking out Dos Gringos and the Sand Trap, because
Adding that to my list.
Jeremiah Weed it's definitely not safe for work. It's not kid friendly, and it is hilarious, and it inspired like a lot of that story. So it was my Depic companion novel. So you have assassin kitties, and it was so much fun to write.
Yes.
And then I had Forlorn Hope come out with Casey Moores back in July. And
which, by the way, viewers, we also did an interview for, so go hunt that one down too.
That one was not a bouncy, joyful type novel. That one was very much a near future military science fiction, country at war and, loss and horrible things happening. But the key, thing that tied that whole story together was hope. And that, by the way, that like is in everything I write. I will never be the kind of author that writes grimdark. I need there to be hope. Like, no matter how dark things get, no matter how badly I let my characters get their asses beat to hell and back, like there is always going to be that hope that, good triumphs over evil, because at heart, I am still very much a kid watching those Saturday morning cartoons, right?
Oh,
also,
yes, same.
Watch them with my own kids now, so.
Oh, we've got the series creator himself in the comments.
Hi,
Bill. Liv says, I thought this was an OnlyFans channel, but this looks good too. We love you, Bill. Thank you for creating this series, by the way. It's been super fun.
It is a blast. I love it so much. And I dear Lord, I have over 15,000 words for book 2 Chaotic Notes already. So
nice.
Next year.
How many books are you going to write in the Valkyries series?
So at the very least, I will have a trilogy, because I have a whole arc planned for Athena and Sebastian, both from like, of course, the enemies to lovers, relationship subplot. And the Slua is not an enemy that can be defeated easily. It is very much a we type of enemy where there might be a lot of them, but they're all one thing. So they're all interconnected. And just because you destroy one part of it doesn't mean there isn't more. So that will take the whole trilogy to come to a satisfactory conclusion, and will also tie back into the beings that may or may not have given Athena's family their powers in the first place. So I have plans, and I'm so excited.
Nice. Do we have projected release dates yet, or are they still very much in the works?
So my goal is to start writing and write the whole thing by the end of the year, and then take a look at my commitments for next year and then figure it out. But she like I told you guys, I like think of these characters as real people. Athena will get book 2 next year at some point. It's just a matter of figuring out where.
And by the way, if you guys would like to keep up with whatever Melissa is writing and releasing, I'm putting her website in the comments too. And they're, of course, in the show notes as well. So like, go to all the links. And you know what? While I'm putting links in the comments again, may as well put all the others back in there. So here, upcoming is the link to the book. And then once again, we're giving away a signed copy. And I'm putting that in the chat as well. And of course, you can find all this in the show notes as well. So go click all those links, do all the stuff, have fun. But yeah. So where are you going to be? Cons or signings or traveling for fun or all the things? What you doing?
So Marisa Wolf and I will be at Deep South Con in, holy crap, like 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
This is why we don't do time math, because that is creeping up. But that is also coincides with Oktoberfest in Helen, Georgia this year. Not sad about this, y'all. It's going
to be a fun experience.
It's going to be so much fun. So that is my last con for the year. I will have copies of my Valkyries novel with me. I will have copies of other things. So, come find us, hang out, and we'll drink some beer in downtown Helen, Georgia, right? I think, that's the last thing I have for this year. I am planning to go to MarsCon, though, in January.
Yay! So am I. We'll see each other there.
I'm so excited. I am helping out with scheduling with all the panel stuff. So cool. I was looking through the list today. I'm like, Heather and Jacob are going to be there. Yes. And then Superstars, which is a super awesome writers conference out in Colorado Springs in February. And then at the very least, LibertyCon and DragonCon.
Nice. So lots of cons coming up, even if they're
This is
mostly
through the whole year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Busy, busy, busy. Between cons and writing, you got a stuffed schedule.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Before we head out, first off, viewers, thank you for watching as well. Thank you, Melissa, for joining me. Melissa, tell everybody where they can go buy your stuff. And then we will say goodnight.
Well, thank you for having me. This is so much fun. I will hang out with you anytime. You can find me at melissaolthoff.net. I am on Facebook in unhealthy amounts. You do not have to be my friend, but you can always send me a friend request. I have recently discovered Instagram and Instagram Reels, and I am somewhat addicted. Oh, yes. Thank you, Bill. I will also be at Mid-South-Con, which is in Memphis in March. So that'll be super fun. Les Johnson is the science guest of honor. Chris Kennedy is a special guest of honor. Oh, it's going to be amazing.
That's going to be a fun one.
But yes, if I randomly start sending people reels on Instagram, it's because I saw something that reminded me of you, and then I'm like, oh, I must send it to Heather, or I must send it to Marisa. And I am vaguely on Twitter, X, whatever, but mostly just to repost what people post.
Yeah, same here. The only reason I'm on Twitter is because I use later.com to schedule my social media posts, and I only get on Twitter like once every 2 weeks. It's glorious.
It took me this long to figure out Instagram, and I've been having so much fun like building reels and playing with those and like posting them to Facebook. Like, it is addicting. But
I got back into TikTok recently, and oh my gosh, the time sink. Like, it's so stupid, but stupid is what I love.
It's so much fun, and I love your a plot here, more plot there. Like, it's great. I love it.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining me for this. This was a whole lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you want to watch another interview, I am going to be interviewing Shammy Stovall tomorrow night about her Frith Chronicles book 3 and 4 Kickstarter, which has already funded in one day. What the heck? But also, if you like, that blew my mind. Like, I watched it happen in real time, and it was just like, what?
It was amazing. I'm like, please teach me your ways.
Yeah. But anyway, guys, if you like something that basically boils down to Pokemon meets Harry Potter, join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. EST. And I will see you there. Yes.
In the
All
comments.
right.